Welcome to Motivate You, the Winner Circle here on thisis50.com. Your host, June Archer here. Today, I have a special guest joining me. There's so much that can be said about this young man. He inspired me to want to fulfill my dream as a recording artist, songwriter, musician, just watching him be in his creative space. He is a singer, songwriter, Grammy award-winning songwriter for some of your favorite artists. Please welcome to the show, Gordon Chambers. Gordon, how you doing, bro?
Great, wonderful. Thank you for having me.
I said bro, but I mean cousin, because I want to give it away. But I'm so excited to have you here on the show. How have you been, and how have you been coping through this pandemic, coronavirus, over the past couple of months?
You know, it's been a journey. I think for all of us, it's been an arc. It's been a journey. And in the beginning, it was fearful. It was rough. You know, I'm a social person. You know, we're in the music industry. So we socialize. And so in the beginning, I was like, oh Lord, what exposure have I had? You know, if this whole city shuts down, how am I going to network? How am I going to make a living? You know, so much of it was connected to socialization for me. And then, you know, so in the beginning, it was a lot of anxiety about the change. And then I was like, then it just became very quiet. And there was a period of like, just trying to like realizing like everything was going to be okay. And then it went into this period of quiet. And that was when the calm came. And I was like, okay, God has new lessons for me to learn at this time. And it was like, this is the time that I can really get closer to myself and closer to what makes me happy at this time in my life. And redefining what a good day looks like, what success looks like. And it's not based on anybody else's opinion. It's not based on the effect I think that I'm having when I walk into a room, so to speak. That validation. It's not for the first time based on external validation. It was like a time of taking inventory and like as Mary J. Blige says, all I really want is to be happy, you know. And
right.
And I found myself comforted by those lessons that God was sending me. And then I realized that once I made it through, and I was like, okay, Gordon, you're going to be okay. What can I do? And that's when I realized that my role could be, I had the tools to not just get myself through it, but help other people through it too. So I found myself strengthened and anchored by that. And then I started to do a lot of vocal coaching, which is something I've always done, but I started to do more of it online. And then just sort of take a different level and a dimension to the vocal coaching and really make it more like a spiritual exercise. And then I found myself being strong. I always worked out, like I always kept some physical exercise regimen throughout this whole year. And that has something like, I do believe that sometimes if your body is strong, that your mind will follow, you know, and so, you know, we got through the year. You know, it was really anxious because there was a lot of people passing away. Like, not luckily, by the grace of God, nobody in my family, nobody close friends of me, but everybody that I know had a friend at one point, a friend of a friend or a family member friend who either passed away or was in the hospital. And many friends of my parents passed. So it was stressful, but it was a year in which I realized that I was strong enough to support others. So it was a strengthening year.
It sure was. Anyone who knows you, Gordon, knows that your home is your sanctuary, and you've titled it a certain name. I want you to share with those who are watching and listening what you call this sanctuary, and how important was it for you taking what you have named the sanctuary to be creative during these past months, because we know you to be this amazing songwriter. When you put that pen to paper, magic happens. But talk about what you named your sanctuary for those who don't know it.
Well, you know, for those watching, I'm Gordon Chambers, first of all, and this is my Brooklyn Brownstone, which was helped. I helped, a song that I wrote for a group called Brownstone actually helped me get this crib. But when I was looking for houses, I was like looking for houses for months and months and months. And the realtor just kept showing me stuff that just wasn't a fit. Because I kept on saying that I needed a parlor room. I wanted a Brooklyn Brownstone because I always was infatuated by the Spike Lee movies, the Cosby Show, just the look of the Brooklyn Brownstones always appealed to me. And he kept showing me different rooms that had the configurations of the rooms weren't right. And I was like, Peter, with all due respect, I really enjoy your company, but I am very specifically looking for a room that I can sit my baby grand piano in. It has to have a great room that can. I said, so with all due respect, Peter, this is my price range. This is my requirement. When you have that, call me. That was very clear. And then he was like, called me about 2 weeks ago. Gordon, I think I may have found something for you. And I was like, okay. I'm like, it was almost like tiptoeing. So then he said it's on Adelphi Street. So when we went to look at the house happened to be across the street from a very famous church, Church of God in Christ, Brooklyn. And this is a church this church's choir in the 80s was on Broadway in a gospel music called Gospel at Colonus. This is a church that Hezekiah Walker was mentored in. This is a church that the Clark sisters have sang in many times. I mean, I grew up in Teaneck, New Jersey. I remember going to different functions at this church in Brooklyn when I was a teenager. It was world famous. So I just felt like if this house was going to be across the street from that house and what that church had meant to the community and in music, that was going to be my house. And so before I even walked in, I just had this goosebumps feeling. And the minute I walked in, and the house was a mess, but the minute I walked in, a tear came down my eye. I swear to you, I just felt it. And I was like, this is going to be my house. And then the name came to me. I said, I'm going to call this house Love Song. So this is the house I've called Love Song. And when you come here, I want you to come in love. I want you to feel love when you enter here. And I want most importantly, I remember blessing the house when the minister of that particular church, institutional, who passed this year. Actually, he died this year. His son is now the pastor, but Pastor Carl Williams. I remember when he came and blessed the house in 2000 when I moved here. He said, "Do you have a prayer for the house? What you want the house to be?" And I said, I remember saying yes, and thinking I want to call it Love Song, and I want it to be a place where creatives, especially, could come here and just, meet, greet, and just be in community. My friend, the singer, she said she came here one day. She said, so this is the famous love song where the artistic elite are known to meet, greet, and eat. That was hilarious.
I love it. I love it.
So this is my home, and it's given me a lot of joy, pride, and joy for the last 20 years.
And you have been songwriting for as long as I can remember, in terms of growing up and seeing what you were doing in high school, playing instruments. One of the things I really admired about you. You were writing hits for everyone until one day you're writing records for some of the people that we love, and specifically Whitney Houston. And she inspired you to go ahead and dive headfirst into a solo career, doing the independent thing. I want to talk about that, but even more importantly, a lot of people don't know the kind of soul and spirit that you have. And when you talk about Love Song, I saw somewhere that her family came to spend some time with you around your table. Mm-hmm. And how did that feel for you to have Love Song open up to people who were hurting, to allow them to heal?
That was a dinner to remember. Wow. Ooh, wow. You're taking me really taking me back. Wow. Whitney, Whitney's from Jersey. She's a New Jersey girl. So I always knew her. I mean, from a teenager, I remember her mother had judged a singing contest that I entered in. That was when I was in college. I met her brother because Gary used to sing at different clubs and stuff like that. It was a while before I finally met Whitney, but when I met Whitney, I had records out that were written, songs for other artists. And And I remember going to this card party at this executive Gene Riggins' house, and Bobby was there. I think Robin invited me, and Bobby was there, and I got introduced to Bobby, and they said, "Oh, blah blah blah." And he said, "You don't know my wife? You never met my wife?" And he said, "My wife loves your music," and then he brought me up to her, and she was just like, "I love your music," you know. And she was so down home and so cool. And then finally, years later, after years of pitching songs to her, I finally got my first placements with her on the Just Whitney album. Was the first song I had a placement, but I had been trying to pitch songs to her for years. And I had, you know, songs of mine that were out, so we knew of each other. You know, she was just warm. She was real. She was down home. And Gary and his wife, her brother Gary and his wife Pat, who's her manager, you know, just took to me spiritually. And at one of those recording sessions, you know, I was trying to get her to sing a higher note because it was a song on her Christmas album, One Wish. It was the title track of One Wish. You know, it was the final day of the session of the album. You know, the album had gone over time, over budget, and we were recording. And Joey, Joey Arbridge is like, "Gordon, you better get that song done by such and such and such. If not, I'm not going to put it on the album." And blah blah blah. So he was really whipping, you know, me. And you know, prior to my time in the industry, I had been more of a songwriter, but Joey hired me as the producer, and he trusted me to produce these records and produce these vocals and work with the mixers. And he put Whitney Houston and Aretha Franklin in my hands. Now, my name had been on credits, you know, for Brownstones, If You Love Me, and Anita Baker's I Apologize, which won the Grammy. Brownstone was nominated. Missing You, for Brandy to Me, A Glass Night, and Chaka Khan. But no one was higher than Whitney Houston. Like, she's, you know, that's royalty. And
Joey's good for that. Joey is good for that. He's good for pushing the best out of you.
Yes. And so he was like, "Get it done," you know. And so there we were, and I'm like, and he's calling like, "Where are we?" Blah blah blah. So at one point I got kind of like more like, "Whitney, we got to bring it home." Bobby's frying chicken literally in the studio. Like, "Yo, come get this chicken." I'm like, "Bobby, I ain't got no time," but it was good. I'm like, "Bobby, I don't have time for you and your chicken grease right now." Although it was very good chicken, you know. And Joey's calling me, and like, I'm like, "Whitney, I need you to hit this note in the bridge," and I needed her to like hit it, and I was like, and hold it, and she did, you know, she was having a problem getting up to the note, but she worked her way up to the note. And then she kind of she did hit it, but then she did this long run cascading down. I want her to hit it and hold it. So I'm like, "The love Christmas," you know, like, and so I'm like really being dramatic with her and kind of forceful, you know?
Right.
And I'm like, "Oh, Lord have mercy. Am I like being too, you know, rah rah with the queen of pop?" But I'm like, Joey's yelling at me. I have to get this done. And I am on a time limit. So and then she got out of the booth and she walked right up to me. She said, me up and down with those eyes, like, she said, "I think you want to do what I do, baby. And if that's what you need to do, then that's what you need to do." And I was like, "What'd you say?" She said, "I think you want to do what I do, baby. And if that's what you need to do, then you need to do, but I'll give you your note." And then she went in there and she hit the note, you know, and it was amazing. But that conversation penetrated my soul, you know, because for years I had been wanting to record as an artist. You know, I had tried to, you know, I had come close, you know, but yet so far as, you know, to landing that major label deal. I was offered a deal by Andre Harrell, rest in peace, who passed this year. That was a hard day this year. When Andre passed, you know,
that was tough.
I remember I just sat in the bed all day long. I was just like, what is going on? That day I just couldn't get up. A lot of memories came and I just lied down. I think I lied down to 6 p.m. that day and just thought about memories. And Andre was also someone who believed in me. And he had offered me a record deal at Motown, but the rumor mill was that he was kind of on his way out. And I didn't want to sign the deal, leave my job at Essence where I was working at full time while I was writing songs. I didn't want to uproot my life. And then the next thing I know that, you know, he's out of there. And he did end up leaving Motown shortly. The rumors that I heard were true. And then Jocelyn Cooper had signed me to like a kind of demo deal, kind of with Universal. And she tried to get the deal. And then she said, "I tried and I tried, Gordon. I really tried." But she said they wouldn't, you know, they funded the demos, but then they at the end, and she kind of A&R'd the demos. She said at the end, they passed on doing the deal. And so I was really like, wow, you know, I tried. And that was my goal. I'm like, if I, you know, because I mean, remember, like in Brownstone's album, I sang a duet, Half of You, with Brownstone. I sang
amazing record.
I sang on, Naughty by Nature, this cut called DJ Shoutout. Actually, KG had me in a Christmas song and a video, Keep It Real on Christmas Day. So I had sung on platinum recordings. So I'm like, I can sing, y'all. Come on, industry. What? So I really went through a dark period because I knew that I'd wanted this and I felt like I'd come close, but yet so far. But when Whitney said that to me that time, it just spoke directly. It pierced my soul. And it was like, I couldn't ignore it. Like it haunted me. I'm like, wait a minute, Gordon. You have all your life been aspiring to get in the room with Whitney just to write a song. And then God had it have it that Joey would say, no, you're going to produce it. So I get to spend intimate time with her. And then she gives me that message. I came home. I went to church that next Sunday, and the minister preached a sermon about, the things that Jesus had done with his life right before he passed. And Jesus, like around the early 30s, they talked about the last things that he did before his passing. And I was around the same age. And not to say that I think I'm Jesus Christ, but I'm like, the message was clear, like,
right.
You never know how long your life is going to be. And what then do you want to do? So that's when I was like, okay, this is the time. And so I contacted Barry Eastman, who had always written songs with. We wrote I Apologize together. We wrote Missing You together. We wrote One Wish for Whitney together. We wrote for Freddie Jackson. We wrote Someone Watching Over You together for Yolanda Adams. So good friend. And I said, Barry, hey, I think I want to do a record. There's a song that I had that I loved. Is it okay? Can I include this? I don't have a label, but he said, Gordon, whatever you want to do, just go for it. I contacted Troy Taylor because Troy and I were writing together. We wrote Just Came Here to Chill together for the Isley Brothers. We wrote Gotta Go Solo for Patty and Ron Isley. We wrote for the OJ, a lot of material together. So they were like friends. I called Prince Charles Alexander, who used to mix records for me. And I was like, listen, y'all, I think that I want to give myself a shot to make a solo record. And I did not, of course, I said, I don't have the budget to pay you if Arista was hiring you or blah, blah, blah. Everybody was like, what do you need? Let's do this. And Troy Taylor he took over. Well, Troy's a takeover personality.
No, Troy's a takeover. Shout out to Troy Taylor.
You need to interview Troy. But
Troy is next. Troy, no, he's next.
You need to interview Troy, but get ready for Troy to take over. But when I told Troy what I wanted to do, Troy took over beautifully. And I remember I must have come to his house and played him 100 demos of songs. I'm like, because I was all over the place. I'm a songwriter that had written hundreds, maybe over 1,000 songs. I didn't exactly know how to focus what I wanted to do. But he was like, okay, let's take a bit of this and a bit of that, and then let me come up with some new tracks for you that I think sort of, help tie the story together. And, a young Trey Songz was in those sessions. Like Trey was baby Trey living on Troy's basement. And we recorded in Troy's basement where he was living in Teaneck at the time. Ironically, he was living in Teaneck where I was living in Brooklyn. But, Teaneck is, of course, where I grew up. But he happened to have been back in Teaneck. So it was kind of like being at home again. Carl Thomas also was living in Teaneck at that time.
Right.
Right. All good friends. We all used to live in Brooklyn, but at that time they were in Teaneck. So I started going over there to do my sessions. I would sometimes go and eat some food at my parents' house. It just felt like home again. Troy was rebuilding his career also because he had left the characters. He was working on sort of the early artist development of Trey Songz. We were doing a lot of stuff together, and he was writing with writers like a young Claude Kelly, who of course went on to write Grenade for. It goes on and on and on. The huge hits, Fantasia, that he's done. So these were people that were in Troy's basement, just hanging out. Like Troy's always been a mentor, a developer of talent. Like I said, a young Trey Songz, who was a teenager, who actually cut some vocals for me sometimes. Like Troy would be on the phone, like, cut Gordon's vocals. So Steph Reed, who's another producer, who was Troy was like a mentor to him, and he ended up working with me a lot of my third and fourth albums. So I found myself in this very creative environment in Troy's basement, where Troy and I were not only just writing songs for other people, because we worked together on Yolanda. Many artists we wrote together for. But it was also when I said that I wanted to do this record, he was like, okay, gotcha. And he said, not only will I help you with this, but I'll have some of the people that I'm mentoring shadow these sessions and also work with you too. So we all, he calls it TTU, became this beautiful environment, you know, and Troy was basically new on his own as a producer post character once he left the character, which was his long-standing production entity, and was now on a solo producer. So there we were just trying to figure it out, and that was where I put sort of I didn't record all of the songs there, but that's where I recorded most of the songs on Introducing and Love Stories, and where we kind of formatted the album, where we kind of A&R to put the album together.
Right.
And Prince Charles Alexander mixed the first two albums, and it was a very exciting time. It was a time of new birth, you know. I had at that point had been steadily in the as a songwriter for about 10 years, and I had hits, but I could feel that music was changing. It was the early 2000s, and the sound of music was changing. You know, I remember there was times when it just became more political. Like you could submit a song that you knew was a smash to a such and such a writer, such and such an artist, but they're like, well, you know, this artist is writing their own material right now. We can try to get you a co-write with them, or you know, you have to write with a producer that the A&R person is managing. It just became a lot of
very political, very cliquish,
very political. It didn't feel like it was about music to me. It didn't feel the same. But I knew that there was still music in me. I just did the politics didn't feel the same as when I first came in the industry, but I didn't feel like I was done. I just felt like it was still another way that I wanted to express myself. And I gave myself a shot. And that's when I released the first album, Introducing Gordon Chambers. And that's led to the second, third, and fourth. And those albums have had collaborations with friends, you know, people that, musicians who I knew before they were who they were. You know, Layla Hathaway, who I knew from college, sang a duet with me on the newest album, Let Us See. Sang a duet with me before she got signed to Verve, when I knew her as an independent artist. Carl Thomas sang a duet with me. The late, great Roy Hargrove, trumpet player, was born 4 days after me. He was born, same year. Like, we always kind of like hung out for our birthdays. Mike Phillips, the great, amazing saxophone player. I mean, these
right. Yes.
that I met like at jam sessions, or artists, singers that I knew before they became what they became. So I didn't have to always go through the label, like, hey, blah, 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 and we, you know, do something. And like I said, you know, people just came through, people supported, you know, and that's a real blessing. I've always been blessed that whenever I wanted to do something as a solo artist, either a recording or a live concert, that I could get on the phone with people I know. I could get on the phone with the best of the best. I mean, the best. Mm-hmm. Like the musicians that, and if they did not have an obligation, if they weren't on the road with a Whitney or a Beyonce or a Rihanna or whatever, and they're like, okay, when is the dates? You know, what's your budget? Can you do this? If I can truly say, if they were available to do it, they've always come through, and for the love of music. And I'm very grateful. Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because I think, Gordon, you get into this business, or any business that is a people business, and you realize, or you don't realize, that networking is an essential piece of it. You just said something that's very important. When you picked up the phone to make the call, that person on the other line said, if I have no commitments, I am on board. That comes with creating relationships and networking. How important is networking when it comes to business, period?
Paramount. It's everything. And networking is about many things. There's many levels of it. But first of all, it's about credibility. It's about, am I credible? You know, not just can I get this person on the phone, but if I speak about what I'm trying to speak about, will they believe me? You know what I mean? So that's really important, because your work sort of speaks for yourself, and you got to be credible, and people got to believe that you believe in what you're doing. Are you there, June?
Yeah.
Okay, something happened with the screen.
No, we're good. We're good.
There you are. Okay, sorry. So I was like, where did he go?
I'm trying to spotlight you. Spotlight you.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
I want people to get the essence of that. I want them to pay attention to this.
So you have to be good at what you do, because people's receptivity to what you want to do is based on very often of what you've already done. So are you credible? Second of all, you got to be likable. You can be very talented, but are you likable? Like, people work with people that they like, and people want to be around people that they want to. I've done so many things, you know, as favors for people just because I liked them, just because I liked their spirit. I wanted to be a part, sow a seed into who they are, what they're doing, you know. Right. And I just like I've always been a person who always been made myself available to people early in their journey, because there's a light in them that I could see. There was a passion and a hunger in them and wanting to be great at what they did, and a professionalism. So I'm like, you know what, I'll rock with you. You know what I mean? Young people, like, before they arrive,
become who they are. Right.
Yeah, because I can feel that. I was talking recently with Brian Michael Cox, you know, and
great person. Great person.
But I remember doing sessions with him when he used to engineer for all the producers at Noontime. He was the engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So when JW,
I remember.
He would engineer.
I remember those days.
Yo, gee, I got some tracks too. I remember. I'm like, let's write. Like, I remember, and he was like not put on yet, but I'm like, but you're just incredible. I could always, but it was like, it was not just his talent. It was that hunger, that passion, and kindness, a kind-heartedness. It's always important to be kind. You know, this is one thing I say to people a lot, and it's the truth. Some of the biggest icons that I have ever met were some of the nicest people. Face is a nice man, really just a sweetness, a kind person. You know, I remember just like, wow, like Babyface, he was like, how are you? Like, just looks you in the eye and really just talks to you. I remember, like, when I first started to work on some stuff with Sylvia Rome. So sometimes I call Sylvia, and like within 5 minutes, I remember it's a woman named May. You remember May, who used to work with
I remember May. Yeah.
And, you know, you get Sylvia around for you. And she had that tone. Sylvia, I'm like, wait a minute. Sylvia's calling me back. Like, I wasn't even ready. You know, I'm calling Sylvia around. I'm thinking, oh, she'll call me back 2-3 days later. So I can get my thoughts together, what she said, and then be like, Sylvia around for you. And I remember that. But also working at Essence, because right out of college, I came to work at Essence and was working there when I was first started to pitch songs, and worked there till like 1997. I mean, by the time I left Essence, I had 3 big charting records, you know, and being Jamaican, I'm like, I got to keep my little job. I can't, you know, music may not work out. I got to have my little job and my dream. So,
but let's talk about that, right? Yeah. First, shout out to Sylvia Brown. She signed me, so you know, I love Sylvia. Yeah. When you talk about Jamaican, you talk about growing up West Indian, your parents are amazing human beings. Mm-hmm. How did you take, because there is a difference. There is a difference. And that is another story for another time. Yes. But there's a certain thing when you see your parents work hard as a West Indian child, you just talked about passion, mm-hmm. right? How important was it to see that hard work from your parents and put it into your craft, that you became a master practitioner at what you did?
Well, first of all, before I talk about my parents, I'm going to talk about my grandparents first. You know, I'm going to take it back, because my parents were molded by them. And growing up, we went to Jamaica every summer to visit them. And
how could we not?
How could we not? And even on Saturdays, you know, even on Saturdays, I remember Aunt Pauline had this hookup with the phone company, so she used to get these little free calls on Saturdays. And on Saturdays, my brother and I were like, you know, we had chores and we had activities that, like, you can do all of that, but you have to speak to your grandparents. And as my grandparents got up in age, there really wasn't much to say, but you're like, hi, grandma, how are you doing? How are you doing? You good at school? Yeah, we do. You know, there wasn't much conversation, But it was important. Like my parents had reverence for
Right.
their parents. And my parents, we grew up in a very middle class community in Teaneck, New Jersey, 3-bedroom house, good school system. We never wanted for anything, but my parents always let us know and were very clear. You're growing up with way more than we grew up with. We didn't grow
Right.
up like this.
Right.
So don't you take for granted, know the sacrifices that have been poured into you for you to live like this. And if you want to live like this or better than this, quote unquote, this you have to work. So I had a paper route when I was, I don't know, 11 years old. I worked. I mean, and when it was time to go to college, I had a. It's funny. I used to deliver the papers to Brooke Shields. She lived around the corner from us, And I remember, like, I had gotten a full scholarship to Princeton. I remember when I went to the sort of like pre-freshman weekend to check the school out. I saw her, and I'm like, Brooke, and she's like, Gordon, and all the people like who are on the pre, they're like,
how do you know?
Brooke? I'm like, oh, she's my neighbor. I used to deliver the papers, relationships. And so I ended up going to Princeton for the weekend, and they're like, how does Brooke Shields? But Teaneck was like that. Brooke Shields, like the Isley brothers were neighbors. Kool and the Gang were neighbors. I mean, entertainers just lived there. And, and Teaneck wasn't the wealthiest. They went there because they had a really good school system. There were other towns that, like Alpine, that were way wealthier. Like Teaneck was like, you could kind of just live, be chill, get a good public school education, and just kind of mix in. And so that's what, and wanting to be in the music business seemed accessible because of the neighbors I had. But when I was at Princeton that weekend, the spirit told me not to go there. I was like, when I visited Brown University, where I felt connected to that university, and my father had told all his parents and all the friends, God, not go to Princeton and get that full scholarship. So I'm like, I don't think I want to go to Princeton. And my father, we did not get a full scholarship. We got some scholarship money, but we did. I said, Daddy, I think I want to go to Brown. I just feel like it's me. I just feel like I relate to it. So I had to get 2 jobs. I mean, I had 2 jobs on campus, for the first 2 years. But I worked. I was never afraid to work hard for what I did. I mean, my father, was in sales. So it was always based on relationships and service. Like my mother was a banker and a loan officer for ABC, and she used her relationships to get my brother and I first summer jobs in media. And that inspired me to want to work at Essence, just that exposure to the media industry. My father, growing up, sold Cadillacs, and then he left and started an insurance business, which is open to this day. He has, it's a insurance, an Allstate franchise, which is alive and kicking, 718-994-4400. If you need any car, auto, life insurance, that's Byron Chambers. My father's office is there. And so, but Daddy, I learned from my father selling cars and selling insurance, the power of community. And Daddy, to this day, has, friends, family members who've been clients of his for 30-something years. Daddy was somebody who is credible. My parents are trustworthy people. People respect them, including yourself. People, they're getting older now. People, you're like, oh, please tell your parents hello. This year, people like, can you give me your parents' address so I can send them a card? Like, people have, my parents taught me, I think, being Jamaican, to not be afraid of hard work, to have your education. Education is paramount to the Jamaican community, the immigrant Jamaican, community. But really just to hold my head up high, in situations. I just think that Jamaicans are very proud people, sometimes proud to a fault, but we're proud. We believe in ourselves. I mean, this is this tiny island, 2 million, not even 3 million people. But if you look in sports, in music, in sciences, I mean, one of the women that, helped develop the vaccine, and one of the first people to take the vaccine, Jamaicans, we aspire and reach in every strata in every profession. We just believe ourselves. So I think my values, and over the years, people have always said to me, your parents must be so proud of you. And I've said, no, I'm proud of them. And I've said that all my life, and I mean it, So, yeah.
I'm gonna tell you a fun fact. 2007, I'm getting married, and Alex and I we go to Jamaica, go to the grill to get married. We fly, we invite over 400 people, but we only invite them to watch it online because we film it to show it live,
Right.
right? No one is there. We pull up to the hotel, Gordon. My parents aren't there, her parents aren't there.
Right.
Two people show up
Wow.
right before our wedding, and it is Auntie Val and Uncle Byron just to wish us
Mm-hmm.
a happy wedding
Wow.
before we started. So when you talk about trust and love and everything that they truly embody that. And I love them over the moon for everything. But for that particular moment,
Mm-hmm.
it was such a beautiful moment. I want to talk to you about people are going through things right now,
Yes.
whether it's death, trying to pay the mortgage, pay their car note, go back to school, pick the kids through school, just trying to keep the lights on. For you, for those who are listening, watching now that are going through those things, the best piece of advice that you have been given
Mm-hmm.
that can allow them to see the light at the end of the tunnel right now.
Mm-hmm. Whew. The ancestors have been through worse.
Mm,
The
wow.
ancestors have been through worse. We were brought here in chains. Chains. We were brought here as unpaid labor and chattel.
Mm,
Some of us didn't even make it through the Middle Patches. I mean, we were chained with naked bodies in our own feces, sweat, grime on the ships,
piled on top of each other.
piled on top of each other, you know. And we made it. Our ancestors made it. So these are times are not easy, but our ancestors made it through worse.
Mm,
And so Bob Marley, Jamaican songwriter, huge influence of mine, hugely influential, you know, said it best: emancipate yourself
wow.
from
Yes.
mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds, you know.
Mm,
So clear your mind. Whatever your circumstance is, how you look at it, is the glass half empty or is the glass half full? Once you shift your perspective on it, on how you're looking at it, is what's going to make the difference with how you can deal with it. You know, our ancestors, first of all, our ancestors always resisted. We always fought back. You know what I mean? And we, in many ways, and we always created. You know, I mean, you think about what soul food is. You think about what the blues, you know, and gospel, the music that was made on the fields is. You think about what patois, Jamaican patois is. It's pieces of African lingo, you know, with English dialect. We've always created. So these times that we're living in are not easy, but they call for the things that have always kept our people strong: faith,
mm,
fellowship, but it calls for mental clarity, and we have to work together. You know, we have to stop taking the pain of whatever ism it is and having that we take and inflict it on each other. We have to stop that because we're stronger in numbers. We can make a change in community way more than we can on our own. And when the going get tough, the tough get going. I went to Cuba about 4 years ago. And when the pandemic hit, it felt like Cuba. And,
mm,
you know, because people found themselves with less. But I found people to be nicer, kinder. Like, you know, New Yorkers are aggressive. You know, now, you know, you got to wait online, you got to social distance, you know, you get only but so many people in the store. And I saw people, you know, immediately pivot out of, you know, necessity, the mother of the necessity is the mother of invention. So we can do this because it's been done before. So that's what I would say.
Music is the soundtrack to our lives.
Yes.
And you have been a practitioner at the highest level when it comes to creating the soundtracks, literally and figuratively.
Mm-hmm.
What is the song that best represents your journey up to this point? Or what artist do you dive into when you're looking to start that day with the glass half full and lead with the right foot and making it a great day for you, or getting into a zone when it's time for you to be creative?
Mm-hmm. Got it. I'll answer that question on two levels. I think the song that I've written that most represents me is actually Brandy's One Voice, which I re-recorded on my most recent solo album, Surrender. The first album is called Introducing Gordon Chambers and Love Stories and Sincere. Then this one is called Surrender. And I re-recorded One Voice. And that song represents, I think, who I am. It's like, you know, if I had one, there was just one sky above. There is just one source of love. And if I've got one chance, one choice, I'll sing it from the heart with one song, one voice. So I think that is not just a song, that's kind of a mantra, that's kind of who I am. But the song that I think, you know, that touches me deeper than any other song probably is Stevie Wonder's Love's in Need of Love Today.
Classic.
Hello, my evening friends. Here's your friendly announcer. I've got serious news to tell you. You know, what I'm about to say could mean the world's disaster, could change your tears to laughter. You know what I mean? If you hear me when I say that love's in need of love today, don't delay, send it in right away. You know, that's hate. Because hate's going around, breaking many hearts. Stop it, please, before it's gone too far. I mean, here we are, you know, in 2020, and hate's going around. I mean, hate that is as lethal and horrible as the 60s. I mean, it's come back around. And the only thing stronger than hate is love. So that song is fuel for me. You know, I love that song. I when I perform in concert, I start since Trump. Oh, we only got 2 more weeks.
It's gonna be the longest 2 weeks.
3 weeks. So I remember when I first started performing in 2016. You know, when I got over the shock that he had really been elected, I started opening my concerts with that. You know, and I was segued into Never Fall in Love. That was on the track on the first album that Troy and I wrote. Troy and actually Glenn Lewis wrote that song for my first album. That, you know, that's how I would start the concerts. You know, I put that song in the set because I'm like, it's like I gotta use this. Whoever's there, remind people that it's bigger than a concert. Like anytime there's a community gathered, we have to use that time together, not just to have a good time and drinks and see some music and have a good time and network, but actually to just like be a community of love, you know, and take that energy, take that good vibration with you, and the next day do something with it, you know, because that's the only thing that's going to get us out of this. And the battles continue. You know, Trump is leaving and Biden comes in, and Kamala Harris out there making some stuff, you know, with a lot, they're going to come in with a lot of resistance, a lot of hard work to do. And it's going to, you know, we as a community have to get ourselves out of this pandemic. And we're going to have to call on the values of that are espoused in that song. So that's the song that lifts me up higher than any other song.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gordon Chambers. You can find his music, starting with Introducing Gordon Chambers, on iTunes. There are 4 albums. You have to get it. And it's important that you guys really understand faith and fellowship will get you through. Our ancestors have been through worse. Yes. But find yourself a space and cover yourself, surround yourself with people who are going to add value. Create your love song. Mm-hmm. That space that when you get there, it feels like you're in heaven. I promise you, that place will get you through many a days when you feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Mm-hmm. Gordon, thank you for sharing this incredible interview.
Thank you.
Your incredible music with the world. Where can we find you? Where can we follow you?
Gordon
And
Chambers,
what's next?
GordonChambers.com is the website. The Facebook is Gordon Chambers. The Twitter is Gordon Chambers. The Instagram is Gordon Chambers. Gordon. I'm Gordon Chambers. Pretty simple.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Gordon Chambers. He is the... Listen, Gordon, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, please like him, follow him, get the music. Like I said, iTunes, new songs are out. I promise you, you will be blessed because of it. And when this pandemic is over, he gets to get on the road. I promise you, seeing him and Eric Roberson and the Glenn Lewises all over the country and all over this globe, because Gordon is a global traveler. I promise you, he'll be in front of you on these stages very soon. But I thank y'all for tuning in. This is June Archer for Motivate You, the Winner Circle here on thisis50.com. You guys be peace. God bless you. Go ahead, Gordon. One more
thing I want to say to people, if there's any singers on watching this who sing as a hobby or aspiring, singer songwriters, I do give vocal lessons, and they're very powerful. They're very transformational experiences. Y'all can see that I'm a spiritual person, so you can contact me if you're interested in some vocal lessons on all of those platforms. I would love to inspire you to use singing as a healing source and empowering source of your body. And the last thing I want to say, June, thank you for these questions. I've been interviewed for decades now, but you asked me about me as a person. A lot of times my interviews are, how'd you do this? How'd you do this? Blah, blah, blah. You spoke to me about me. And I really appreciated the depth and the breadth of the questions. It was very, very beautiful. And I really appreciated it this time. I really did. And I appreciate you. Very proud of you, of all the things that you do. I get all the emails and all the press releases of all the things that you do and the mark that you've made on Hartford. You're everybody's like, every time I meet somebody from Hartford, I'm like, June's my cousin. Like, oh, we don't do. Like, you put your town on the map, and so thank you for who you are. And anytime I could ever do anything for you or with you, just holler at me.
And we will. We definitely will. We have a lot of magic to make when this thing opens up, and I'm looking forward to it. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Gordon Chambers.
Peace.
Follow him, like him, and get that music. Once again, June Archer here for the Winner Circle. Motivate You. God bless y'all.
Thank you.
Peace.